That's just a control system where, people are then being restricted by someone else. That's not freedom. That's the powers that be or others saying, we're going to take control of you. We're going to say what you can say. We're doing it all in the name of shall we say, creating less friction or animosity between groups and things. But in reality, that is just a restriction on our ability to communicate with one another and to express, to where we just, are all subdued and like I say, pushed into a cell. We're into our own cell. We've given the warders and the jailers the key, and we've walked into the cell and said, hey, yes, this is safe and this is peaceful. This is, no one will say anything about us, no one will do anything. But you're trapped. You're controlled then by the warders and the jailers. If you follow what I'm trying to say, is that even though it might be offensive to some people, it's offensive to me if someone insults me or says something about things. But if we are really as we're meant to be as humans, shall I say, if we really get past all our ego and our hang-ups about all the things that have been put onto us, because it's all what's been put onto us, I think, whether we care about, if I've got pink hair and white skin or green eyes or purple or whatever, all the little silly things and even the different beliefs and things, they're all really so similar, and they're all things that have been put onto us, I think. I don't think they're our invention even. I don't think all these discrepancies between everything in the world is our invention at all. I believe it's been put onto us. It's been indoctrinated into us. Even the different religions, the different races, all this. It's not really how we naturally are, and it's not how we really think. It's just what we have been conditioned to from birth, the same way that I was conditioned from birth to be put into the box, and only realise it now at this really late stage, almost when it's too late, I feel, but I do realise it. And it's, if you're told things all your life and you see it around you everywhere on the TV, the news, all this stuff is put into us. So we believe it, we buy it, and we think that there are differences between groups of people. We've separated ourselves instead of saying, hey, we're all one, but we're all individuals, and we respect and we love that and we embrace that, and we'll even have a debate. Eventually, if we had done that all along, we probably would be at peace anyway. It's the lack of communication and the prejudicial information that we get that has created the rifts, the separation, really. Not if we truly communicated and actually, say, lived with other people and actually really knew that their thoughts are probably no different really to ours. And even those that are very different, if they've become very violent and aggressive and angry, that is not their fault either, because that's their circumstances. If you box people into, this is where we need to realise that if we start looking at people in other parts of the world and saying, oh, they seem very violent and stuff like this, we need to realise that their situation, we would be the same in their situation. Their situation has been put onto them to where they become aggressive and violent and feel that the world is against them. And the world in some ways is, because if it's set up that way and people do turn, and they have got, you know, media and different things, and anything turns against, well, then you do get a prejudiced view, and that their paranoia even becomes justified, you know. But either way, what I'm trying to say is none of us are free. Even where I live, in a #1 civilised city in the world, and I am not free at all, and neither is anyone else. Like I say, humans are digging their own grave every day. They're digging their own grave, digging it deeper and deeper, but they think they're digging and planting flowers or trees. If only they were, but they're not. They're letting the paranoia that's been put onto them make them behave and accept more of a closed-in society and more of a closed-in world. They accept the security. We do not need to have the police walking down the street and controlling everyone, because we have the citizens on the street controlling one another. We're watching one another instead of watching the powers that be that are watching us and controlling us and making us do this. They don't need to, use all the electronic stuff that is around to even subdue us, even though I'm sure they could. Because we have set up a world of mass with the Wi-Fi, with the internet and everything. It's a mass communication thing for us that we think we need, and we've become dependent on this technology, and going further down that path to where we're trapping ourselves more and more. But that technology, that convenience, that communication that we're addicted to, is also our downfall, because it also means that it is a security system. That means that we are puppets of this system, because it could control us. We're controlling it, we think, at the moment. Like I'm using this mobile phone here to record this thing. At least it's got some use. You know, maybe, I don't know. But I think I'm controlling it, and I am, but it also has the downside that it is a system that can control me and everyone else as well. Like I say, at the moment, even with that system in place, and you're probably going to say there's no such thing, it's not like that, but I think we've seen even overseas that it is there, and some people might even say, hey, it's for our benefit. If there was some, a lot of people would say, hey, if there was a bit of a riot or something, it's good for them to just zap everyone. That might be some people's attitude, I do not know, but like I say, I think that while people express themselves, why should one group of people be allowed to have a rally, like even a women's movement? You see it overseas where they're having rallies and talking about women's rights. Why should that be allowed? And another group that has a different view on something, why should the powers that be come in and zap them and say, no, you're not entitled to your opinion either? I think everyone should be entitled to their opinion and their view, or at least the right to express it anyway, provided they're not, shooting someone in the process. Why shouldn't they? And we should be open to it too. I'm interested to hear everyone's opinions. I know that probably sounds funny, because I'm certainly the most non-political, non-worldly person in the whole world, and that's how I lived. I lived totally in my own box. And until I started to realise things not long ago, because of things that were actually forced onto me, I had to start seeing stuff that I had not wanted to see and had not seen. And I can't say that it's a pretty thing that I see now, because it is not how I would want. I want a free, peaceful, happy world for everyone. Even if people like violence, even if this, because I think people are now, humans have become a lot less, they're losing that ability to find their happiness in the normal, peaceful kind of way. I think that's true, because I think that the way we're being conditioned with all the trauma and the life we do live, it's so unnatural for us, I think, that it's hard for us to find that higher, happy, peaceful state. And when I say happy, I mean where you're caring and loving, as opposed to aggressive and angry and disliking, shall we say, and even hating. I think, but I would say even to the people who feel aggressive and hateful, that do even you want to live in that closed-in, restrictive world? Like, because even you're entitled to express some of your ideas, and you might enjoy patrolling people on the street. If the powers that be say, well, we'll have the people patrolling themselves, that saves us doing it, and they think that is a safe world, and they think they've got the power then if they're doing that. See, you give that to like a community, like a local community, where you say that the people watch the people. Instead of watching us, you probably should be watching the powers that be, because they're the ones with all the control and the power, really. Like I say, they can zap you or me at any second. If you don't see me tomorrow, you'll know that that's the case. And actually, it's not funny at all, but I'm not going to go into that. This video is about everyone out there, or anyone out there really, because I don't think too many people will be listening to this video, but it's not about me. I just use my experience to see if you agree with how I see what's around me. And maybe you might see it too if you have a look, if you really open your eyes and actually just start thinking about it and looking. Either that, or you might even accept it. You might say, hey, I want it. That's the dog. You might even say, hey, I might accept being a prisoner. I might willingly go into that jail cell for the benefit of some sort of safety. But to me, that is kind of like, how could you be safe? You're less safe because you've given up your freedom. You've given up your ability to even take your freedom back at any point once you do that. And then you're totally at the mercy of the powers that be. Whereas before, you're 3/4 at the mercy of the powers that be, because, like I say, we've already let it go too far. There's already too much surveillance. There's already too much patrolling. We're policing ourselves. The powers that be have the ability to totally, with the network that is across the world, they totally have the power to control any group, any individual, anyone at all. The only reason they don't is because if they even did decide that they wanted to just control a group, they don't have to, because they're getting, at a community level, normal, probably basically even good people, to patrol their own citizens. And the good citizens think that they're probably patrolling for the benefit of their community, and that they're patrolling citizens that might make their community less good. In other words, they might think they're patrolling bad citizens, whereas in reality the powers that be, in my humble opinion, only pick really good citizens for the other good citizens to patrol, because they do not want the really good citizens active in the community, because they want a controlled society that they can totally subdue and manipulate and make less, not more. Whereas a good person does not want to see humanity suppressed and destroyed. Like I say, humans digging their own grave, but foolishly thinking, which I don't blame them, because I did the same thing in my life. And if you only see what is presented to you and you can't see what's really going on, how can you make a good decision? you probably should do nothing. That's what I would probably do if someone said to me, oh, you should patrol your streets or be part of neighbourhood watch or part of your local church or your local lodge where you watch other citizens. I would probably myself, even in the past, and this is probably why I wouldn't be popular, because I would say, hey, I'm just not going to do that because I don't know that person. I don't care what other people do. That's not my job. That's the law's job. That's what we have. That's supposedly what we have, the system of law and police and all the stuff for. We do not. That is not individuals or normal people in a community's job to do. Otherwise, we may as well not have the rest of it. But we've got that too. So we've got this high police military presence that can control everything, and yet they still expect us to be watching one another so that we feel more paranoid, and we're actually watching, yes, the few people that could help us, I believe. They do not pick bad people. They set the good people up to look like bad people with false things about them. I see this. They spread bad rumours that are not true, and these are the very people that love them and that would help them, because they do not want this in the world. They don't want people to wake up and to be free and to come into as they're meant to be. They don't want that. And yet they let humans think that they're under the delusion that everything that is done for them is for their own safety. They set up all the problems, all the chaos, and then we're like, oh, they'll come in and save us and fix up a situation that they're basically caused, like they put the fear into people about different groups and, like I say, spread prejudice around. This is how I see it, because all human beings are only as good as their environment to some extent, to a large extent, really. If you're brought up and you're in a war-torn area where there's all violence around you and there's, you cannot expect to be a peaceful person, and your environment is not peaceful, so you couldn't be anyway. It's just common sense if people actually thought about things. Even if you see really bad stuff going on, it's so easy to be offended by the violence, which is true, you should be. You should indeed be. How can you not? But at the same time, that is put there to offend you. And then you police your own friends, your own neighbours. So you're making their life a misery. You're restricting your world, your life in a way. You're not acting like a civilised, normal, rational human being. You're doing what you're told, you're not thinking about it, and you're believing whatever you're told. Instead of saying, hey, whether this is true or not, I do not act that way. I'm not going to walk around the street doing a policeman's job, following so-called other people around. I don't even care what they do, because if it's not here right in front of me now, it's not my business. It's not for me to... And while I'm under that delusion, this is the thing which is dangerous about it, is that even if you thought, hey, let's get rid of all the police, let's get rid of all the authorities, which actually, that's far from it. Like I say, we're actually surveilled, and every single human being is almost like got strings attached to the Wi-Fi, to where there's not a free individual on this planet. We're under the delusion of being free, but there's not a free individual on this planet at the moment, in my opinion. I'm more aware of it than some people because I've seen a lot of stuff up close. This is why I've looked into it. I had to, and it's totally devastated my whole identity, my whole view of the world. What I thought was real is not real at all. The reality that I thought was there is a total illusion. Everything is a lie and a falsity. Everything, even down to small things. Even the weather changes in the blink of an eye, but I'm not going to go into that either, because if I sound too bizarre, you won't believe even a few little things that I might say or even consider them. That's the thing. But really, we are in a world, Well, they were talking about weather modification years and years ago. I mean, so it's not really, all these things are really there. Like I say, the old saying, everything is really there in plain sight, but it's hidden because it's so much in our face half the time that we just dismiss everything. And then when we're given a choice, we always make the wrong choice because, we have the false information and we think we're doing good. Like I say, we think we're digging our own grave, but we think we are digging and planting a flower. Even at a community level, people think they're doing the right thing. They think they're creating a safer, better community for themselves. All they're doing is doing what the powers that be want them to be, where they're closing themselves more and more in and suppressing the few people that could actually help them, that actually are on their side. In other words, I believe at community levels, human beings are suppressing their friends, their allies. Yes, that's what they're actually doing. They're watching the wrong people instead of watching their real, shall we say, controllers and the ones that do not really wish them well. They're actually watching people that would actually do them no harm at the very least, and probably, if it come down to it, want to help them. But they're tricked. I see that all the time at community levels, and it starts at the community level. See, while we're at the community level, we certainly don't see the big picture. So like I say, everything's hidden and in plain sight. But if anyone's listening at all, anyone at all, and they're part of any of these sorts of things, they need to, I'm just saying, just think about it. Just think before you act on what information you're given. And even if you're given information, if you're a proper human being, you should say, that's just information. That is not something that I see in front of me. This is not really should I be doing this? Admittedly, like I say, if you're in a group or if you're in a church or if you're in any group, it's or even like some sort of gangs even, to where you feel part of that and you want to go along and help, your other members, and that's your family almost. It's very easy then to be deceived into doing the wrong thing too, instead of saying, hey, I love yous and you're a part of my family and my group or my community, but hey, no, I do not really want to believe that gossip, and even if it's true, I don't really know it to be true, and I do not want to be in that kind of world. I do not want to create that kind of society. No. Do you want a society where people are following one another all round all the time, watching one another, suppressing one another, hurting their fellow human beings that actually might be their only hope for survival, because those very people could be the ones that probably know more truth, and that is why they, they're not fitting in with the group, shall we say? But they're not against the group. They're very humane people, and they care about things that probably even yourself wouldn't care about. But they usually just keep to themselves, doing... Sorry about that noise, it's the dog. They usually just keep to themselves, doing their own thing, doing a little bit of help in their own way. And yes, these people might make mistakes too. I know I've made a billion mistakes in my life. I've sometimes been led down the wrong paths. It's a learning process. That's why I say we should not condemn one another, because everything is a learning process, and allowing for the fact that everything is put onto us, I believe, by the powers that be, the controllers. Every circumstance, I think the deception is so massive that people have no idea. Even I am blown away, but I have seen it now, so I can't deny it. But until other people start to see some of these things, we will continue to lock ourselves in, and then eventually, we will be so closed in that we will not be able to get out. And there will be very few people left that can even see the truth, because, like I say, while we suppress the people who at least are trying to just live a little normal, free life, and everyone else is turning themselves into mind-controlled robots by the powers that be, obeying orders almost, you could say, even if it comes from their community level, because the community level is being directed by further up. Everything goes up like steps. Even if you're in your local church or your local lodge, you think that you're dealing with just that little lower level, but it starts right at the top, but the top is very separate from the bottom. The people at the bottom do not know what really goes on at the top. So in other words, a lot of the people at the bottom are actually quite good people, but they're deceived because they are getting their information only they think they're getting it from their lower level, but it's actually coming from further up, and it gets passed down, and the reasons why they do things at the top are a lot different to the reasons they give you down the bottom. Like I say, I suppose a good example would be if I was right at the top and I didn't like a particular individual, I thought they were disrupting my system. I'm not going to expose that to the people down the bottom. I'm going to set up situations and things to where the people down the bottom willingly will do what I want them to do, but they won't know that they're taking a direct order from the ones at the top. They will think that they're doing at a little local level, and they'll have different setups and things to convince them to do that. So people think they're doing the right thing, and, if they were really sensible, they'd probably stop and think about it and say, hey, even if this is true, this is not my job to do this, and hey, I don't want to be how should I say? I don't want to be someone that is patrolling and controlling my own community and watching them and spying and harassing and trying to do the law's job for them. It might make you feel important even. Just like I say, some people. Depending on your mindset, if you've been pushed into that more aggressive mindset, as a lot of humans have now, then you're actually probably even going to enjoy it. You might enjoy riding your motorbike around, beeping your horns at everyone or something like this. You might get a real buzz out of it. You might enjoy even a bit like a bully. But what I'm trying to say, even if you are that type of person, even if you hate the person that you're patrolling and harassing, just bear in mind that you will be next. That you are not free either. That person is probably more on your side than the ones that are paying you, or the ones that are, giving you false information to where you think you, like I say, community driven, think you're doing a good thing. Digging your own grave, digging everyone else's grave, but you think you're digging to plant a flower. You are not. I wish you were. That's what we should all be doing, is digging and planting some trees and flowers, in my opinion, and maybe some fruit trees. How about some mango trees? How about some grapes? How about some lemons and limes and oranges? How about fruit trees everywhere? That'd counteract all the pollution. I was only saying that the other day. No one listens, but it would be so pleasant, healthy for us. Boy, do we need it. But at any rate, I'm signing off now. I'm sure I've missed quite a lot. I wanted to talk a little bit religiously, but I'm not religious in such. But I like to sometimes bring it in because there is still good in the words of some, the Jesus and all this people, there's some good in what they say, but the whole Bible and stuff itself is often quite confusing and quite misleading and not full of all truths, no. And actually even quite satanic in its whole in many ways. But there is a history there too which can be learnt from too, I think. I'm trying to look into all these things. But, I just wanted to put out there too, like I was doing in the other thing, but I didn't think the video was very good, that, people talk these days, this actual Earth, because I've never even thought about it. I've always thought we live on a round ball, we live in a solar system. But in the Bible it says about a firmament, which would kind of mean a flat Earth with a dome over the top. That the firmament being the dome over the flat Earth. Now, I don't know, but I was thinking that it doesn't make sense with the solar system, but I was thinking that maybe if we had the flat Earth but the dome over the whole solar system, that might work. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know. I will get more information maybe as time goes on. Maybe things will appear to make a lot more sense, because I'm really very ignorant and just learning, and all human beings have such, like I'm not one of the smarter ones, so it's sad to see so many human beings suppressed, because I know that they are so brilliant, really, and instead we're handing over all our power to the computer and to the technology, which, like I say, will defeat us in the end. It will be used to control us, to push us into that cell that I'm talking about, dig our own grave, all this stuff. That's how I see it. So it should be used for our benefit, and we think we've got control over it, so that's the danger. Just like I'm saying that people who patrol on the streets doing the powers that be job for them, so they don't have to zap us from around, because we're controlling ourselves, we're suppressing ourselves. All these things we're creating. Even the mobile phone is used for communication, for watching too, and for communication between people at patrol and stuff. All these things that we think are being used, that were given to us, and that we made the choice. So we make the choice to accept these things, and we should be able to do that with the freedom of knowing that they are to be used as we think. But in reality, all these things are used for our convenience, but also our dependency and our ultimate control. They're not all used for good, because we do not have the full control over them that we think, and even when we do, we're still now using them also for not good purposes. If we're spying on people and using them for wrong communication, then I'm not saying we do that all the time, but the potential is there, and we do it. And so we have to think about all these things, I think. It's probably too late, but as long as we become aware, we can stop that final total control of us. Because, like I say, whatever you're doing out there, if you think that you're free and you're in control of everything, that would be very nice, and that's how it should be. But we have gradually allowed things to close in on us. We've accepted it. We do not say no to it. That's the trick of it, I think, is that we've tricked ourselves that way, because we do have a choice, but we always, when we're presented with the choice between safety, security, we get paranoid, we're made paranoid, and so then we make the wrong choice. I've done that all my life too. There's always been choices, but you don't realise that those choices, they know you're going to make the wrong choice, because if they set up a situation and you've got two choices, but one appears to be safe, or even if you're offered something, like I say, if we're offered technology and we're told that it has benefits and that we need it, and we gradually just get used to it, and it's usually very gradual too. None of these things, like I remember when they first invented the computer, and a lot of people were sceptical about it, but as time went on and it gradually got into use, that scepticism was completely gone, and so there was never any doubt that it was a good thing. Whereas originally there was, oh yeah, do we want to go into this tech world? Like, is it, could there be some downside? And the minute you start using it, and I know myself, you start to see benefits and conveniences and things that you didn't have, a lot of people even need it for their jobs. It's almost a necessary evil now. It is a totally necessary evil, even if it was bad, it's become necessary, but I do think that we are glued to it far too much. I mean, it's not good for our body to be around that sort of stuff all the time either. I mean, the human body is not made of steel, and it should never be made of steel. I think they're conditioning us for that, but it is not meant to be, and it will lose its superiority if ever it does become that. That is not the superior way. I realise that now. I've always thought I was a pathetic little human being, and and I'm probably one of the lesser ones, but hey, that human body is a lot more, if it had been allowed to stay in its natural state and not destroyed by all the chemicals around us and all the stuff that is destroying that natural. The same with the human mind, the brain itself, which actually is more of that spirit side, that compassion side, that other side of the brain must be working with the logical, practical side in order for the whole thing to be working perfectly. That's what it was given to us for. If you only have a portion of it, you're going to be extremely limited. Just as if we go down the technology of the computer, AI sort of thing, that will be superior in its own very limited way, but it will never be all-encompassing. It will be only a very singular, advanced way of doing things. And human beings are being convinced that that is the best that they have, that there's nothing more, and that logical, information-driven, intelligence-only, practical kind of way of thinking in the mind is the only way, that all the rest is not necessary and that is a detriment. Whereas in reality, without the other side, you see nothing. With the other side, that's where the higher beings have went in the past. That's the people that we would have even admired and thought were the superior people. That was because they had their whole mind, not because they were like a computer, and that to them would have been like cutting 3/4 of their brain away and becoming like a limited, controlled, just robotic human being. Sure, you might have information that spans like a library, but that's all you've got. You will still know nothing. You will have no real thinking ability. You will just be an information thing. And what's the point in having a whole lot of information if you don't even know what to do with it? If you haven't got your full mind. And also, most of that information is lies that we get now anyway, as I've said before. So, not much point in going to a whole library, because the library is just full of junk, basically. From what I'm seeing and getting information myself, there's very little truth. In fact, it goes so deep, it's too unbelievable until you start to actually see it. Once you start to see a few things, you realise that it's not just one thing, it's everything. That's very, like I said, as I said before, that's very hard to comprehend, because it's a bit like I don't know how true, I'm not going to say my opinions on everything, I'm just putting out the different views, but even if tomorrow we went back, and this is just an example, but it's probably not even that important, but if we did sort of go like, oh, is the earth flat or is it round? We've been told it's round for so long, and before that it was flat, but basically we've been told that. So if we did find out that was a total lie, and that all the space, everything is a sham, that would wake everyone up, surely, because they would have to say, hey, if that's a lie, everything's a lie, because that would be the most unbelievable thing. Now, there's a lot of people who do think that, because there is evidence the other way. Now, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, because either way, everything to me is a falsity anyway. So, even if we are on a round thing and in the solar system, I still say that everything that we know about that, everything that is around us, is still all lies. We do not really know what's going on in any of those planets out there anyway, or what is going on even on our own planet. And we do not know who really controls everything. And like I say, we will never know, because while we foolishly think that even at a community local level that we actually have some control over things, then we're just buying more into the delusion and into the illusion. It's like a fantasy land that all humans are living in. And I've lived in it too. And I'm sure I sound even more fantastic now. At least I thought I was living in a real world that I could see. I thought that this little 3D world that we're in was real to some extent. And at least that I thought it was pretty chaotic anyway and crazy, but I still thought that what I was seeing and what was presented to me had merits of truth in it, and that even the history and stuff was real. Like I've said before, the master races have all been destroyed anyway. And when I say master races, the Aboriginals and Indians and ones like that, they were master races. I know they seemed like primitive to us, and yes, we, the civilised, advanced race, wiped them out or suppressed them, the same thing. But they knew much more than us. They knew how to live. They knew the truth of what was going on around them in the world. All their fantasies and their fairyland, their dream time and all that stuff, the Aboriginals talk about, that is all. They were seeing stuff that we still don't see, but it is actually probably real. It is part of the world, but and they were living in that, so they were actually more realistic, and I believe that's why they were actually more advanced than us, and yet we look down upon them. And it's no surprise that they have been wiped out and suppressed by everyone else, because that's right, the powers that be do not want the good people, the people that know things, the people that are aware of the real reality. They don't want those people around, because it breaks the fantasy and it stops the system that controlling us all, that we're living in, but also that we are accepting and thinking is good. And while we think that we are in control ourselves of our own little destiny and our own little world, and we think we have some say, we're just even more in that delusion. We do not have any power, we do not have any control, we are not free in any single way. If we think we walk down the street and we can hassle someone else, we think that's freedom. While the powers that be are controlling that and setting us up with all that. It's all a big setup. Like I say, the more some of the lesser race, what we would have thought were the lesser races, were actually the superior races, because they knew more. And even they know nothing now, because they've been separated from their origins and from their higher mental state too, just like us. When we're living in the lowest, humans are now living in the lowest state that they've probably ever lived in. And they've always been at a relatively low state, because there was some sort of, I'm not sure, intervention. I have ideas, but I'm not going to go into that because it's too bizarre. But there was, even if you go on a biblical sense where you say, oh, there was a fall, well, even that's where things changed, isn't it? Like to where originally we were in a superior state, but we were tricked into believing that if we so-called ate the apple or went with the serpent, that would be the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Well, actually, we already had all the powers. And when we chose that knowledge of good and evil, we actually weren't picking knowledge, we were picking good and evil, that's right. We were separating from our higher self to where we were in connection with one another and had all our powers together and individually. And once we did that, we were open to what has now happened, I believe, over the, thousands of years, and to where we are able to be controlled and suppressed by the serpent, shall we say, by choosing that path. Because it's a bit like now, if we choose to follow and let the powers that be dictate our way of living and take over our world and tell us how we should think, how we should behave towards others, and actually feed us information about our very environment, to where we think what we see around us is actually real and is all truth, then that's the same thing. We're still making that choice of stepping out of the so-called Garden of Eden, if you want to look at it. We're so separated from that state that we probably were meant to be in, where we were higher beings, knew everything, and we were at that, and we were always, probably would have always been happy and at peace, and we wouldn't be behaving the way we are now. We wouldn't know what it is to be, to have had all the trauma and all the hate put into us, and all the anger and frustration, and the way we live, the way I've been like it all my life too. That's not how we were meant to be at all. I realise that now. I see it, I woke up too late. But we have to become aware, at least stop some of these things before we have no escape at all. We're even being conditioned to accept that kind of society, that kind of world too. We see it on the TV, we see it in movies and stuff. Most of the stuff is, like I say, presented to us, and we accept it, and we see it. And as I've said before, most of what we see as fantasy is the truth. If we see it in a movie or something, we say that's fantasy, and so we are seeing the truth. It's presented to us, but we choose to see that as fantasy because that's the idea. Whereas everything that we see as truth is actually the fantasy. It's the unreality. It's not really what's possible. It's not really even what is actually there. And if we watch a movie and it seems fantasy and far-fetched, and we say, oh, that couldn't be possible, then we've automatically closed our mind to that possibility that it could actually be in our reality. If we look at I'm talking about a controlled society and a prison society, well, if we don't see it, if we don't see that, like even in a movie, I haven't watched any of these movies myself, but I've just heard about them, Hunger Games type thing, it could already be being set up, and we wouldn't see it because we would have seen it in a film and said that's fantasy, and yet it could be right under our nose. And I'm starting to think that all these things are, like I say, under our nose, visible and in plain sight, but hidden just the same, because we're not seeing them, because they're too obvious. They're presented to us so much in our face that we just dismiss it. And so, hidden but in plain sight, that saying, and I've said it 1,000 times just over the last month or two because I've got onto it, but it's everywhere like that. Everything is hidden but in plain sight, but people are not seeing it because it's too much in plain sight. They don't see it. It's right under their nose, so they're looking further else, looking at something else, sidetracked, distracted. And I've done that too. It's so easy to do it. Now I can just sort of see those things a bit more. Wish I didn't, actually, to be honest. But that's another thing too. I think people actually don't want to see it because it's distressing, and I certainly get that. But if you don't see it, it won't go away. It will actually then close right in on you. That's the problem, because if it was something that was only a possibility and not actually real, then you could do that. Some people might even say, oh, well, it won't happen for another 40 years, so I don't care too. Well, that could even be a delusion too. Things might be a lot closer than what you think too. So, anyway, like I say, we just need to be, at least just start to try and look. And don't dismiss everything because it seems unrealistic. Everyone discuss things and have an open mind. Do not be too super sensitive to what is said either. Let's, I've never had any opinions about anything before now. I've kept to myself. I do not care about politics. I do not care about, I never even looked past my own street in a way, so if someone like me starts to see stuff, I think it's it's serious because I've never had any views much on anything, and now I realise that you have to actually see a few things, even at a little level, because you're participating in things when you don't realise you are, as I think it was the title of the video, but I'm not sure. We're all digging our own grave, but we think we are digging to plant flowers, but we're not. We're digging our own grave and everyone else's. And if we just stop that digging, even if we just stop the digging, stop doing it, that would be something. Yes, we should try to plant the flowers, really, but some people will. I don't. Even I don't want to be. I don't really want to be doing anything. I don't want to even be making this video. I don't enjoy it. I don't want to do it, and I half think it's a waste of time anyway, because I think people have to see things for themselves. I would not believe anything until I saw it myself. I would laugh at someone like myself saying all this stuff, and I just wouldn't care anyway. I'd probably just get about living in my delusion and getting about doing my own little, thing that I do for survival, really. And that's how we are. Well, we are very focused only on our own survival. We're distracted completely, and then the bit of information we get puts us more into paranoia and fear, and then when we do something, we're usually doing something that's contributing to our entrapment, shall we say, which is kind of sad, because we probably think when we're watching the few little things we do watch, or even patrolling our little local area, we think we're doing good, and we're actually doing extreme bad, really, unfortunately. But we just need to. I don't want to. When I say we, as though I know what we should be doing and stuff, I don't like to sound as though I'm a know-all, because I know nothing really. But in saying that, that's probably wrong too, because I don't really know nothing. I know more than what I want to know, and even someone like myself, if anyone sees the video and knows me and knows something at all, no one would be interested in me at all if I didn't know something, That's another thing, because even I would say if anyone was watching me, I'd have to say, well, why? Because I've never done anything most of my life. Maybe made a few little boo-boos, but most of my life I lived a very boring life and a very distressing life in some way. So I would not consider myself a threat to anyone or anything in any way. I've never really even been part of anything much to even have even an influence, and yet so it fascinated me and made me have to think, why would something be? Why would anyone even be interested, anyone even take notice of me in any way? And I would say that some of the people that picked on, shall we say, in this society, and that's putting it very mildly. Those people may not seem like a threat to themselves or even to other people, really, if they really thought about it. But to the powers that be, who do not like any sort of freedom at all, they do not like someone who even goes probably and smells the roses, you know. They don't want people that are just free-thinking and even try to be content in themselves. And that's every human being's right. That's what we're here for. We may as well be gone otherwise. You know, I'd be happy to be gone tomorrow in the world that we live. I only hang on because of obligations and because I'm stuck here. But I'd be quite happy to, and I don't have a suicidal bone in my body. I've always said that all my life. But hey, I've always thought the world was not great, but that there was a hope for it and that there was a little bit of reality in what was going on around, and that you could make your own little corner of the sky if you were lucky enough. I always blame myself for everything, never the surroundings. Now I realise that for most people, we ourselves only contribute a little bit to the problem. We do make choices, but we are surrounded by so much control and so much disinformation and so much setups in every single thing from the day we're born, the trauma from the day we're born, that it's very hard for us to even find that little corner of the sky to actually do that. It's almost impossible. If you really knew how much everything was set up, people would then realise, and they would, if you can only see some deception, you might see more and more, and then you'll realise that it is all a setup, everything, for each individual too, which is kind of strange because most people say it can't be down to an individual level, surely, because the world could not possibly be like that, because we all think we're, but every individual does count, even to the powers that be, because we are all connected somehow, and that's what even I did not realise all my life. So that means that even though we're all individuals, we're also all connected. So even when we're not trying or doing anything at all, humans must be sending out some sort of connection to other human beings, because otherwise individuals wouldn't matter to the powers that be, would they? Because they would just be not important, because one person does not matter, especially when, like I say, you could be, zapped like that anyway, and you can be controlled anyway, one person. It's, especially if you're not like someone that's, got like a celebrity or a politicians or people where they are manipulated to control the masses, to put ideas into their head and to tell them how to think and behave and what their values should be. Whereas like just, the rest of us that are like right down the bottom and have no public platform, we should not be a threat to anything. We couldn't be, and yet every individual appears to be, because otherwise you wouldn't see like like very young innocent people I see being targeted around and suppressed by their community, and you say, what possible threat could these people be to anyone? Of course, they spread false things around about them, but even I know that's rubbish because I've seen it myself, but other people buy into it, gossip and stuff, and, they even set up situations. Oh, it's all bad, but what I'm trying to say is the real truth is these people must just have a little bit of a potential in their own mind that will be passed on for the benefit of everyone else, because they're not like a celebrity where they're out there actually pushing all their bad agendas. These people probably have good agendas. They're probably just people who are just a little bit more content in themselves. And that vibe, they do not want that vibe out there to everyone. Oh, that's what I think anyway. That's why these people are harassed and patrolled by other good people that think that they're not, which is sad. But like I say, if people just stop and think about that and just say, hey, should I should I be part of these sorts of things? That's really all I'm saying. Is just stop and think, because even if you're a naughty person, I see lots of people that enjoy bullying and stuff. Even they should say, hey, even though I'm enjoying this, is this really my benefit for the world that I want to live in? And do I want to survive in this world? Because if they're being manipulated, even if you're a bad person and you're being manipulated to harass a good person, even if you're enjoying it, even if you're a bit psycho, a bit a psychopath or something, that doesn't matter. You still have to say, hey, what about my survival? I'm really being manipulated by the powers that be to hassle this person. This person actually is no threat to me, and even if I enjoy it, I still should be thinking about the fact that I am being manipulated by the powers that be to do it. You see what I'm trying to say? Is that even if you're not a good person and you're doing, you need to wake up too. So I'm saying that no one is safe. Don't think because you're on the side of, an organisation that appears to be running, even if you think it's at what you think is a top level, which it wouldn't be. Even if it's government, it's not a top level. And so you think that means that you're safe and you can just enjoy being vindictive and nasty and whatever. You're not. You're being controlled too. We all are. Like I say, we're all not free, digging our own grave and digging everyone else's. But while you think you're digging a grave for someone else, you're digging your own. We all are. I know it. I'd almost be happy to go in that grave to get out of this world, because I think sometimes it can, if you see too much, and also if you are part of the negative stuff that goes on, it does become hard to even live in your own little niche and say, I'll make the best of it. And even if there's only a few years to go before, boom, I'll still try and make the best of it. And that's what I think a lot of people are doing. A lot of people are this attitude these days, oh, it is what it is. Let's just accept everything and get on with it. But that's all well and good. But if you're accepting your own imprisonment, that's really going to... and you don't have to either. You can at least slow that down. That's what I'm saying. We need to at least slow things down. We need to go back. I believe we need to go back in time, go back in order to go forward. Even technologically speaking, we really need to go back in order to go forward, instead of like so many of the what they call futurists and all this stuff. They mean well, and they think that technology is their saviour. It's not. It's their downfall. It's the controller's control of humanity. And even they can't see that, because they think, oh, we'll be smarter, we'll be stronger, and this. We are already a lot less smart than what we should be, because we're closing off all our abilities. So putting our mind into a artificial mind that is already limited, even if it is full of false information, because really a computer, it's just information. And if our consciousness is already being limited, because human beings, as they are originally, like I say, originally I believe that we were much, much more superior than what we are now. We're extremely limited now, extremely. And it's very hard for us to get even remotely some of those things back. And like I was saying, some of the lesser, what we would consider to be the lesser races, already had a lot more abilities. And we didn't learn from them. Instead, we wiped them out and suppressed them, and thought that they were fantasy. But they were a lot more along the track of operating as a whole human being, because, as I've said before, I think originally the human mind, the human spirit, the human body was so superior. In fact, it probably didn't have disease or illness. We probably lived for huge amounts of time. All this disease and all this illness that is being put onto us by the powers that be, I believe, it's all a setup. Even our, we get all these diseases that we shouldn't get, I don't think the human body is meant to be like it is. Most of it's created, and we blame ourselves for it, and it's actually even not us, I don't think. A bit like everything that goes on around us, we contribute a little bit because we make certain choices, but those are the choices that are given to us. We don't know that we have prospects for other choices. It's a bit like, if you think you can only drive your car a certain way, and if you think you have to have a car, that's the choices that you got, and then you get dependent on the things too, so you wouldn't know how to do anything else. And that's the same with the food and everything that we have. We are only given limited choices, and it's all bad for us. So then we get sick, and then the powers that be offer their miracle drugs and their miracle cures, or most of the time they're not even cures. I mean, let's face it, we still haven't cured cancer. And cancer shouldn't even exist in the human body, I don't think. I really don't think so. I'm sure I'm full of it. In fact, I should have lived, even in a pollution-free type world or a cleaner world, I would have lived, I think, to 90, because I didn't do too many things wrong, relatively clean living, like no drink and smoke and drugs, anything like that. Tried to eat a little bit healthy, even in the limited range I had. My father lived a long time, but hey, the world has got a lot more pollution-driven now. Like, we're really being hit with a lot more external forces, shall we say, that are contributing. And even if they offered a cure for some disease tomorrow, there'd be another one that would pop up. It's not. We're not allowed to be in a almost immortal, shall we say, state. When I'm not saying that humans are meant to be immortal on this actual world, but I believe that, well, even if I don't know how true people want to believe even some of the biblical stuff, but they did talk about humans living 800-900 years and stuff, and I believe that everything has deteriorated. So we can't prove all these things, but I think that everything about human beings has deteriorated. And everything is because, not our fault, it's because we have been tricked and it's been put onto us. And also, how can I, like for instance, avoid all the diseases and things that are in my body? How can I? Because it's around me, it's in everything, it's there. In the past, if I'd have had the superior mind, I might have been able to cure it myself, with the mind even. But not now, because all these things are suppressed in all of us. And even those that are aware of it, you still can't get those abilities. You still can't solve the physical and the mental problems. You can't, because the environment is limiting that. In a cleaner, better environment, we would be able to perhaps expand a little bit. I thought I was about to expand before all this bad stuff started happening. And maybe that's why it started happening, because there was just a little bit of expansion where I saw a bit of potential after 60 years, a lifetime of complete control, suppression and unhappiness all round. And I started to value the few little things and started to think there was a little potential. And maybe that's why all this stuff has now come even further down on me, because they don't want human beings to be really happy, I don't think. And I know that then we look around the world and we see all the celebs and we think, oh, they've got it made, they're all happy, they've got everything. How come they're happy? Money's the answer, and they've got the freedom and stuff, but they haven't. They get given money, but they are bought and sold. They are controlled just like us. They're just well-paid, controlled puppets, whereas we are not well-paid, controlled puppets. We have to slave. We've been conditioned even more, but they've paid a price for that. They have to put out all their false agendas, all their false images, and they're not free either. And they may even have to do many more things than what even we're aware of. I'm not going to go into that, whereas we have to slave and have to abide by certain things, but they appear to have it made, and so they create the envy too. So we're, most of my life, yeah, that's right, always envious that everyone else seems to be doing better. Everyone else seems to be. I used to even be envious of just people that were right down the bottom, because I used to say, oh, they're so normal, because I had a few problems, mentally even, like I'd be restricting myself mentally. And that was what was put onto me from childhood too, the environment. And so I used to envy even just normal little people, thinking, oh, they're not frightened of some of the fears that I have. A bit like if you're frightened of heights, you like envy the fact that someone can go and walk up a big flight of stairs, or stand on stand in a high place and look out a window, or climb up a hill or something. So I was very much like that, because I was limited with a lot of phobias and fears and things. But then envying the rich and the famous, and and I still could in a way, but I now realise that really those people are also part of this control system. They are not free either. They are bought. If they don't toe the line, they're pretty quick out on out on the street, shall we say, and sometimes much worse than that. Most of them can't even walk away once they are in that industry. They're stuck there. I mean, they want to be in it because that's their field. That's like any person, you can't blame them. If you've got a talent and you love doing something, you want to be in a particular industry, a particular field, even sciences. They want to be in, and so they're going to be bought and bought by the powers that be and controlled, because that's their life. That's what they want to do. Otherwise, they'd have to just go and live in a shack and not do what they love to do, which is sad. But unfortunately, in order to do that, the industries are set up to where you can't do that freelance and you can't be free. You have to then go into a Hollywood setup or a music industry setup where the powers that be control that industry, and you do what you're told. So in order to practice your craft, whether it be the arts, the entertainment industry, the Hollywood, all this, it's all a control thing. So they're not free either. They appear to be. They present that image to us to make us follow them and be envious of them and want to be like them and believe what they say. They're told to push all their agendas, their images and things. It's all false. They're not individuals. They do not do anything themselves. They do not think for themselves. They're totally programmed, totally bought and sold. And in return, they get paid a bit of money. They live in very nice mansions and things. And it's the same with even the academic side of things, your scientists and all these people that they're the same too. You wouldn't think that, but I believe it's true, because it has to be, because otherwise you can't have the false world. So it has to be a total thing. It's a total setup. It's as though that the powers that be are almost like God, where they control everything that goes on in the planet, which would not be such a terrible thing if they really liked us and had our best interest at heart. But unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. It is a suppression thing, and it is even to where there's even an elimination process. They don't even want all of us, and they only want the most robotic people around, really, the ones that follow their agendas and their ideas. It'd be a bit like if I was that controller and I had a certain, I want people to only follow things my way. Whereas I'm actually saying, hey, even if I'm wrong about some of the stuff I say, just be allowed for it to be considered. Let's all just debate it, talk about it, discuss it, see what we think about everything. Never be frightened. We shouldn't be frightened. There's so much political correctness, all this suppression of everything. Oh, it's for our good. Oh, we can't have that bad influence. Why can't we? That is not. That's not freedom, you see. So you can't have it. You can't have it always. You're either going to be free, and I believe that if we're all free, eventually we'll come to a better world. I do not think suppressing everything and controlling everything and stopping people from even expressing wrong things, I think that is what it is to be human, and humans will make mistakes, sure, but we're not even allowed to do anything. it's just like being put in a box, and you may as well be dead once you get to that point, you know. Dare I say, we see that in films, and we've seen how important it is, but we're not living it anymore. We've lost sight of believing what is natural for us to believe, that this is our world. It shouldn't be controlled by other beings. When I say other beings, I mean even human beings that have lost the ability to be human beings. And even if we were all turned into human beings that are not human beings, we even still do not want to be controlled by other less human beings that are not human. In other words, regardless of how you think, what your situation is, what you've become, even if you were artificial intelligence, do you want to be controlled by others that do not really care about you at all, do not have your well-being at heart, that actually just use you and manipulate you and do not care to give you any space at all to be what you want to be unless it's under their conditions. Anyway, everyone, if you are harassed in any way, or suppressed out there, I'm sure there might be some people that I do not feel too bad, because if you are, it's probably because you are a little bit special. Don't think too bad of yourself. Don't feel. That's about all I can say to people like that. If you're in that position, because so many people are deluded, and a bit like Jesus himself, they don't know what they're doing, and nothing has changed since Jesus' time. If Jesus was here right now, every Christian would still do the same thing to him that was allowed to happen. He was stalked and harassed and persecuted during his lifetime. His own fellow human beings followed him round and patrolled him secretly the whole time he was there, and they were even able to bribe and manipulate his own disciple to turn against him for a few dollars, and he was his own disciple that loved him. So this shows you how easy it is for the powers that be to manipulate society now and even back then. Just think about that. Jesus would not have even been caught if he hadn't been completely stalked and watched by his own community the whole time that he was around. And yet he thought he was free getting around, just saying a few things to people. He didn't even have anything against the authorities. He said, give to God what is God's and give to Caesar what is Caesar. He didn't even have anything against the Romans. That's right, they were controlled by the powers that be, that saw him as a threat, because he actually did not want to take. All he wanted was for human beings to have a choice, to think right, I guess, really. And like I say, I'm not going to promote religion or Jesus. I'm just using him as an example, because I think some, even people like that, they're just a little bit more aware. They come here to show people, to give people something to think about, really. That's really all it is. And I'm thinking about it now too. I'm thinking about all these things that people have said, and I can see and apply it to the world right now. And I'm not being particularly religious even about it, I'm not going to go into, all the God stuff and all, I'm just saying that it's always been the case that we've always been controlled and always been manipulated. And even good human beings will persecute their fellow good human beings. Like I say, even the Jesus Christ example, if you really want to look at it, he was persecuted by his own people. They were hassling him all the time. Okay, so some of them listened to him and he had a bit of this, but there must have been an awful lot of people that were at a community level watching him all the time, setting him up, It was rather hard to set him up because he did so little wrong, whereas most of us are easy to set up because we all do little things wrong. We're human, we're not of that superior human being that knows everything right and wrong and questions everything. We do silly things all the time. I know myself. One disaster after another in some ways. And I don't think that, if you learn by things, and, that's the whole thing. I believe that, whereas I don't think that really the powers that be really want people to learn. Even jail and stuff is not really a learning thing, is it? It's really to make people worse. And I think that's the setup in our world. I don't think they want human beings to improve or to learn by their mistakes and advance themselves in any way. That's where I think. That's just me. I could be wrong. And if you, like I say, just think about these things. I think just people should have a think and have a choice. I know we've had all the choices, and like I say, we keep making the wrong ones, but that's because we are very much trapped by our paranoia and our fear, and that's put onto us by the powers that be. If we start to think, and that's going to be hard to get round, because if my circumstances hadn't changed so much, I would still be in that fear state too. And I am actually in that fear state anyway, but now I think I've got less to lose. Whereas while you still think you've got something to lose, if you think, oh yeah, I've got this, I've got that, I've got me little house, I've got this, I'm a little bit comfortable, I've got to look after my family, I can do a few things, I can get a little bit, then that fear of losing what you have will not make you still make the right choice. But believe you me, I think, personally, I don't think that even if you own something, that you really own it. I think the powers that be can, if it suits them at some point, they could take everything from everyone, and I think that's the world we're heading towards, where people will own very little anyway. That's just my opinion, but I could be vastly wrong. So I'm saying that, we need to really just start to think and do what really is in our hearts, or even what we think is logically right, I think sometimes even, because, even to me, even from a practical, logical point of view, I don't think that, even if we want to throw away what is the right or wrong, or what is the, what is a human thing to be doing, even just from a logical, practical point of view, I think even the most cold-hearted person, even a psychopath would have to say, hey, this is not really the world that is going to be conducive to my well-being or my survival. If they really knew what was going on and really thought about it and actually saw how tricked even they were, I think even they would say, hey, this is, we need to stop and think, even if you don't really care, even if you don't give a shit about anything. Your survival is not there for you if you don't start and stop doing things where you are being manipulated and controlled by the powers that be. You're not doing it on your own. You're not doing it on your own. You're not doing it in any free will of yourself. You are being manipulated, conditioned, mind controlled by what's around you and by what you're told. And everyone is being tricked, regardless of your denomination in any way, regardless of everything and anything, from the smallest people like myself right up to the top. It makes no difference. And it's only if, as a collective, I suppose, in a way, that we all start to just say, hey, this isn't really the world we want, and just realise it, that then there might be some way of at least turning things backwards, slowing things down, because we certainly do need to slow things down. We can't be heading towards this future that we're heading towards, that prison cell And we think it's a comfortable little cell too, which it may appear to be, although I don't even think that, to be honest. You know, and the more we get into this kind of virtual world, the more we are losing sight of what is really happening in the real world too. So I think it's important that we realise that the world is not a computer, or at least it's not the computer that's in front of us. You know, even if it's a real big computer, it's still separate from that one that's being used to control us. You know. Okay, I think I've rambled and bored you and hassled you probably and upset you quite enough. I know I've upset myself. I really have. And like I say, I'm not that happy about even making the video. And if one person sees it and gets a little something out of it, I suppose that's something I do not know. It's almost just getting it off my chest in a way too. So it's probably going nowhere. It's probably just sitting in front of me. And I can certainly see how ridiculous it would appear to most people. But like I say, just everyone should just look for a little bit of truth and even debate some of the things that are put out there. Don't dismiss everything as a theory or as a falsity because people laugh at it. Just consider it. Consider everything. You know, that's what I'm now trying to do. I've laughed when I heard a few things on the YouTube and stuff, and I said that couldn't be possible. But now I don't laugh. I just will consider it. I'll try to have an open mind. So if you can say everything is false and everything is probably a lie that is around us and that we've ever been told and are being told, everything is a delusion, then you start with a clean slate and open your mind to every possibility. That gives you, I think that's not a bad thing either way, even if you want to still believe some things. If you can do that, because it is rather hard to do that, because it does mean that you have to accept probably that you might have been fooled, and, you know, I've certainly been fooled, and still being fooled to some extent, because I think that, you're never going to get away from what's going on around you, so you have to be alert, and actually that's a bit stressful too, to always have to be. You shouldn't really have to be totally paranoidly alert. We should just be aware in a natural kind of way, but actually we're not. But that's the way it is, so you can only deal with it really. Anyway, I better say good night and good luck to everybody, and hopefully we will stop digging that grave. At least stop digging. Just stop digging our own grave. And after all, it's a bit exhausting anyway doing that. We'll soon enough be in it, in a real one. Well, that's another story too, but we shouldn't be fearful of that either. We should try to not let the fear of something that may or may not be true direct our actions in life so much too. That's where we could also be tricked into heading down artificial and computer things, because we're so frightened. We think that we're so little, and we've been conditioned to be terrified of what happens at the end of life and stuff too. That's probably all a big condition too. Like we're even told what we're supposed to fear. Whereas I think originally probably we didn't fear even all those things. We just lived, I think, probably. And it's terrible to think that we now live as we do. It makes you that can make you angry too. It certainly made me angry. But I can't change it for myself as much as what I like. But maybe some of you might be able to make better progress. There might be some of you out there that can make really good progress. that really can stop and think and can actually build a life and pass it round to where you can have a good influence and actually take back being a free, superior being and be as I think we might have originally been intended. And even if we weren't, we should try and head that way. Because I think I think human beings are a lot more special and important than what we have been led to believe. We have been so put down, so controlled, so suppressed, and to where we even now would think a robot is better than ourselves. But that I do not think that is true. I think that it's the other way around. That's why we have to be controlled and manipulated and all this stuff that's on us. Because we could just... Some human beings out there, especially if they can get even a little bit of change in the thinking, throw away all the conditioning and all the mind control, we could take back this whole world that is really meant to be ours, not controlled by these controllers that do not care for us or even like us. They don't even like us, and yet we put all our faith in them. We let them control us. We let them make our decisions. We let them influence us. We let them take over our minds, really. And they do not care for us at all. They don't. Not even the ones that think they're being pampered and that are doing all right. They're not. A lot of them are not even. I don't think they really care. Some are just allowed a bit more benefits of this world, but no one is free. I don't think. Yeah. Only the ones that are controlling, right at the top. They're very few, I would say. They're free in the sense that they're, controlling the whole of humankind. But like I say, it depends on how far up you want to go. Who's, what the whole agenda really is. That is another story, I would think. And I'm still looking, and that's all I say. I'm sure I'll die looking. But maybe some of you can look and find more. Just keep an open mind, I think, is the main downfall of where we've all been led astray, because it's no good even having an open mind if you're only open to the limited information that you're fed, because you're literally fed it, really. You're not even seeking it out yourself. You're not even looking into other possibilities half the time, because you think there's only facts and non-facts, whereas most of the facts are just not truth at all. They're lies, inventions, fantasy. Most facts are fantasy, and most fantasy is probably facts and reality. But, so we're looking at a total unreality that we think is real, which is which naturally is bound to be deceptive. So how can we make the right choices? We don't even know what's going on, and we don't know what's going on. We only see a little bit, and then the little bit that we do see, even if it's presented to us, we think that's false. And even if something is proved to be true, we say, oh, that's just a one-off. That's not the whole picture. That little lie, that doesn't mean everything's a lie. Whereas, perhaps unfortunately it is. So, anyway, I've rambled and bored you for far too long. So I should say good night. Keep thinking, if you can, for yourself rather than what is pumped into you. You control your own mind if you can. Don't be mind controlled by the computers and the media and everything else, and the industries that are all around us telling us how we should think and be and feel. I might be seem very odd to you, and I am, but you can still just be aware anyway. You can still, think about every person you see, even that is influencing you, and say, is that really how it should be? Is this really a good thing? Because so many things that appear to be good things are actually a deception. Would it be good for everyone to be transgender? Would it be good for everyone to be transhuman? Would it be good for everyone to be gay? Would it be good for everyone to be not know what they are? And you have to say, would that be good? Like, it's okay for a minority, but would it be good for everyone? Because then you have to say, well, does that mean, what are the implications, and why are these things pushed onto us? Because it's one thing if you think something yourself and you've really come to that conclusion based on your total self. And even that is very debatable because, like I say, if we're brainwashed from the day we're born, we're not really, I know myself, I wouldn't know really what sex I am, what gender, what identity I really have. Because if you have been conditioned and brainwashed from the day you're born, it's very debatable if you should even know this. We think we do, and then it's very easy to say, oh well, just because I was born into this, that doesn't mean. But I'm wondering if all this confusion, because there's so much of it, like it's one thing to have minority groups that that say they think a certain way, which is, which might be considered different from, the way nature intended or whatever, I mean, there again, I'm not going to go into that, but I think a lot of these things are pushed. It's not like people are coming to these conclusions themselves, because I used to think this way myself for years, and I thought it was just me. Now I'm seeing it pushed in the media by celebrities and things, and I'm thinking, I'm almost thinking that's strange, because I always thought that I was not only the odd one out that way, but also, even though I accepted it in myself, I did not think it was desirable for the whole human race to be like me. In other words, if I was like a neutral kind of gender, in other words, if I didn't think that I was male or female, I would not recommend that for the whole human race to think like that. Because I don't think it is a healthy or a good thing for humanity to go down that track in the future, because then you could be looking at you could be looking even at the extinction of humanity. So it's not a practical thing even. Of course, I know we can do other things and we can start to manipulate in laboratories and things like that, but even that is a bad thing, I think. I think once you go down that path and you if evolution weans out the ability for humans to reproduce naturally, I think that would be a bad thing. I do not think that everything that is done artificially and in laboratories and things is necessarily beneficial. I think you lose things as you do that down through the centuries. That's just my opinion. So human beings could be making themselves less even by that mentality, and that could start with everyone like myself saying, hey, I do not choose to be male or female, or I choose to wear it's both sexes, and therefore you can't reproduce, and you don't have your identity as male and female. All that sort of stuff. It all sounds very well and good, and I'm not knocking anything with it, because I know that it becomes so terribly important to people, because it can. I've had that myself, to where it eats away at your mind, to where you become obsessed with it, to where you think you cannot even breathe unless you have a certain identity. You don't think you can adapt, and you actually think that it's terribly important, and it can become an obsession to where you cannot even enjoy your life unless you are a particular way, unless you change something. And I'm just wondering if this isn't a mind thing that's put into us, because it does become an obsession. I've experienced that myself. I now realise and at least think for myself that it has not been a good thing, and it's wasted a lot of my life. It doesn't lead to happiness. Anyway, I better go because someone's knocking at the door.